I want to talk to you about crazy. It's a good word. It's one of my favorite words. It's not a good thing, but you got to like a word that's got a Z in it. I'm a psychotherapist, a psychological specialist, and the reason I'm bringing it up is our culture, our society, with all that's in it right now, and including all the political aspects of it and our governance. There's a big overlay of crazy that's involved with it, a massive overlay, a mental health issue. I talk about that in my book. Let me just show it to you again. It's called A Loose Grip. In my book, I devote a whole section to who's crazy. I ask that question, and I don't give away the way I end it. I talk a lot about the phenomenon of crazy and what it means and how it works in an individual and throughout our society. And I finally define crazy as anyone who can't be sensible when it's necessary. It's a simple idea, but it's a real important idea. Anytime you can't be sensible when it's necessary, that's crazy. Most of us would be considered normal. Most of us are normal in our mental health. But normal has a very, very wide range. And within that range, there's a lot of stuff that can go on that's called crazy. We can't lose sight of that. We live fragile existences, outwardly and inwardly. Our culture, our politics, so many things about the elements of what we need to do in our governance really does weigh on us as individuals. And we need to understand how to deal with it, how to adapt to it. We have in this country, half of us, at least half of us, and maybe more, don't trust the certification of the vote tally when we engage in an election for the President of the United States. And of course, that would also account for other offices. But let's keep this simple. For presidency, half the people or more don't trust the vote certification. The other half think that half, the ones that don't trust, are crazy, or they think they're treasonous, or they think something horrible and bad about them. And the two groups don't look at each other very well upon each other. And so we're confronted in a very serious way. It's not just disagreements. It's about whether we'll survive, as a culture, as a republic. And on top of that is the overlay of the Orwellian dynamic. And what that is this pressure and requirement that coming from one element of the culture to demand allegiance from the other part of the culture, that we have to get on board with every idea, and if you don't, it's an affront to decency, to virtue, to what's right. It's obvious to see what kind of trouble we're going to get when you have any faction or group of people, however big or small, that makes such demands on other people to toe the mark, to march in one direction. It's also remarkable that a lot of times, like all the time, when one group is pointing a finger at the other group, what they're accusing as they're pointing a finger about the bad things about the other group, that the finger pointers are doing the same thing too, and don't even know it. And that's where we start to lose our sensibilities. That's where this whole idea of crazy, takes shape and works its way in a very devious way in our psyches as individuals and as a culture. When we think of the derangements, we think of the hysterias, we think of the non sequiturs, we think of looking in all the wrong places for demons. It's a very serious thing. Now, what I'm laying out is not very optimistic. It's quite pessimistic. But here's what's positive and optimistic about it. We can't fix anything unless we can identify it. And if we continue to be parrots of the media, if we continue to follow the established media, which is doing you no great service, if we lose our sensibilities as individuals, if we go blind, willfully blind to see what we need to see, we'll lose everything. We need to know that. By everything I mean the whole sense of being a fully formed, fully thinking, fully involved human being, for reaching for what's positive. We'll lose that. I mean, that's why I call my book a loose grip. We have a very, very fragile situation, and I suppose through all eras it's been that way. But it doesn't mean that we can't rise to the challenge to not be crazy, which means be sensible when it's necessary. And a piece of advice is obviously to, think for yourself, think hard, think long, and try to pay attention to voices. Maybe I'm one of those voices. There's other people beyond me. Those voices that make a lot of sense in a consistent way not only make sense, but make sense over the long haul. They can break things down. They come from a place where they're reaching for positive and for what can be. They're realistic about what is, but they reach for what can be. And try to be mindful of those voices. When you're inspired by anything, try to live by those tenets. And you have to be a voice too. Learn how to be a voice. Learn how to be a voice to yourself and for the people you care about, for just anybody you may encounter. Try to be a voice of reason. Try to be a voice that's sensible when you need to be. So with that, let's keep it upbeat. Let's keep it positive. I'm pulling for all of us. And as I always tell you, best to you in all good things.